Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am Evan Belfiore. Joining me on the phone is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you this evening?
Man, I'm feeling funky like a monkey, brother. Let's get into the AFC East.
All right. Do you want to do the Browns preseason first? Some quick thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I generally don't care about preseason football, especially when none of the starters are playing, basically. But what have you seen in the preseason that you like, Jimmy?
So we have many discussions about preseason football. We understand it's just a money grab. Every team would probably just be better served to schedule scrimmages and evaluate on their own. That being said, I think there's been a lot of good to come out of these first two Browns preseason games. We expect Baker to be fully healthy. If Baker misses a handful of games, just from what I've seen in the scripted plays, I fully believe Case Keenum could handle it for a couple games, if need be. The running scheme has made a couple of backup running backs look like they're as good as Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, and I think that's, if I can just butt in here,
Absolutely.
People all of a sudden want the Browns to find room on the roster for this running back, Kelly, who supposedly dominated against guys who aren't going to play in the NFL. And this is the stupidity of fans. They just see somebody go off and they're like, oh my God, that guy's great. Calm down.
So I will say, to be fair, he had some touches with the Rams in the regular season last year, and he ran hard there. And I don't disagree with you, but he looked like a starter amongst backups playing. But I think a lot of that was how well he understood the zone schemes and how well the plays were dialed up.
Yeah, he's somebody who's been in the league and played against a real defense, playing against guys that aren't a real defense.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't disagree with that, but he did look good. Like I don't think we have to have a roster spot for him, but if there was room for him, I wouldn't be upset. Like he did look really good. My boy Kadero Hodge looked good. Higgins dropped a couple passes that he usually catches, but my focus more has been watching the defense. I may owe you a drink or some money because Greedy may not make it to the regular season.
I don't think we bet on it. I think I've just consistently said I'm not counting on Greedy Williams to do anything until I actually see him on a football field in pads.
And he looked good for the couple plays he was healthy. But both Newsome and LeCount have both looked very good. They look like they're handling the scheme on the back end very well. And Jock looks like he may be on his way to being a really, really key piece of this defense. The game does not look too fast for him. He looks like he's processing. It looks like he's getting to the right spots. Now, obviously, when there's starters and teams are full go, it might not look like that. But right now, the game is not too fast for him. We've had plenty of defensive players be drafted high, and they couldn't handle the speed of preseason, let alone regular season. And so far, that's at least not been the case for him. But I've loved, just mostly on the offensive side of the ball, I've loved the way the schemes and the play calling has looked. And I really can't wait to see what it looks like with the starters on the field.
Yeah, I think the two things that have stood out the most for me are the offense looks really organized with the backups out there, and the defense too, which is a really good sign. And it's what we would expect of any team that's coached by Kevin Stefanski. He's an organized guy, and that discipline that he has for himself is translated to his team. The other thing that caught my eye is the defense is just faster this year. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what it looks like when all of the starters are out there. Newsome looks really good. That they're just faster across the board. They just look like they're making better tackles. They just look better. So I think it bodes well for what we see moving forward with the Browns. The lines haven't moved much for them, and I don't know. Do you do you like the Browns more knowing that, the Ravens have all this crap with Lamar Alexander and whether or not he's getting a vaccine?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. It gives me more confidence looking at that, which is a really weird feeling as a Browns fan.
Yeah, like as we said when we did our AFC North preview, if you believe that the Cleveland Browns have an opportunity to win the AFC North, win the AFC, go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, you're really going to want to try to get those bets in now, because we believe on this podcast that whether they beat the Chiefs or they lose to the Chiefs, they're going to come out looking good. And even in a loss, if they look good against the Chiefs, all of those numbers are going to take a drastic hit. So you need to get those bets in now, get them locked in, if you, like us, believe that the Browns are one of the main contenders in the AFC.
And I'm just going to update the odds here. Most betting places have the Browns to win the Super Bowl at plus 1,600. You can get better value at Fox Bet. They're at plus 1,700. For the conference, plus 750. Again, Fox Bet gives you an extra 50 here with the plus 800. So it does pay to look around, try and find the better odds for yourself. And then the AFC North Division winner, they've been pretty much around plus 145. FanDuel's got them at plus 160. Again, look for your best odds. I like all three of those bets.
Yep. Even if you didn't want to make the Super Bowl bet, certainly the AFC North bet, you should probably definitely make that bet.
Absolutely. Shall we discuss the AFC East?
Yeah, let's do it. This is going to be kind of a weird division this year.
Yeah, well, last year the New England Patriots were unseeded. They were unseeded by the Buffalo Bills, and Josh Allen in a... Shit, did he win MVP last year? No, it was Rodgers.
Yeah, I think Rodgers got it.
Yeah. And Josh Allen, who got them to the AFC Championship game, they lost to Kansas City. Jimmy, the Buffalo Bills are an enticing plus 1,200 to win the Super Bowl. They're plus 550 to win the AFC, and they are minus 150 to win the AFC East. And if you just want to win a bet, the AFC East for the Buffalo Bills is a bet you're going to win.
Yeah.
Their over-under sits at 11, Jimmy. Do you like Buffalo to win more than 11 games?
I'd be hammering that. I have the Bills going 14-3.
Yeah, I have them in the 13-14 range. I have them winning the division. They are, and we can get into some player prop stuff here in a little bit, but they are a team that is going to put up a ton of points. They're disciplined. They have a good coach, and the media has decided that Josh Allen is the guy that they're going to love this generation of quarterbacks, much like Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, guys that the media they're never going to criticize those guys. And I think that's who Josh Allen is this year, and it's going to make me sick watching them all season.
Yeah, like we talked off air, there's not really much to not like about the Buffalo Bills. For me, it starts with the coaching staff. McDermott has proven he knows what he's doing. It helps when you've got somebody that's been as successful as an offensive coordinator as Brian Daboll running your offense.
Isn't that a weird sentence to say?
It's crazy. And then having Leslie Frazier as your defensive coordinator and your assistant head coach is a big deal. And then a spot that I like too, going through their team, they have a gentleman named Heath Farwell, who is their special teams coach, who's had massive amounts of success as a player and coach on special teams with the Vikings, Panthers, and Seahawks. Like, their coaching staff is buttoned up. Josh Allen is in my opinion, he's a top 10 guy. I think he has potential to be top 5. I do think he has a decision-making ceiling, but the team may be just too good for that to matter. And I do love Mitch Trubisky as a backup. I hate Mitch Trubisky as a starter, but for somebody to come in maybe 2-3 games for whatever reason, I think that's a wonderful spot for Mitch to be in.
Yeah, as long as you can't game plan for Mitch Trubisky, he can be fine. And in the backup role, nobody's game planning for Mitch Trubisky when Josh Allen's on there. Right. I would actually say that Buffalo reminds me a lot of the Baltimore Ravens last year. Young quarterback coming off a really big season, and the team looks like they're primed to take another step. I just don't think they're going to get it done in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think Josh Allen isn't good enough to get them where they want to go. And I'm looking at his playoff stats, and won 2 games last year, lost to the Chiefs. He was 64% completion, 817 yards, nice with the 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. I don't think you can win when your quarterback is kind of playing average.
Yeah, and I think a part of it in the playoffs, I think it's going to be part of the situation is going to be the way the playoff bracket breaks down, right? Because if I look at the teams that I'm projecting into the AFC playoffs, like, I don't think if Buffalo catches, whether it's Indy or Tennessee, I don't think Buffalo is going to have any problems there. The Chiefs and the Chargers both have chances of making the playoffs. We know what the Chiefs are. The Chargers probably aren't ready. I actually, looking at my projections, I see New England as having a very strong case to get themselves back to where they're supposed to be, where they tend to be. I would not want to have to play Bill Belichick 3 times in a season. And I think just one of the better playoff games you could have would be if we can get a Buffalo-Cleveland playoff game. I think that would be an absolutely great playoff game. I probably would still lean Buffalo over Baltimore, who I'd also have in the playoffs, in that playoff hunt. So I think it's going to be the way the brackets break down, because I agree with you. I think a lot of those matchups, Josh Allen is not the better quarterback, but Buffalo overall just might be just that good of a team.
All right. Well, do you want to get into the player props?
Absolutely.
So I love all of these for Josh Allen. He is plus 1,200 for MVP. He's plus 800 for most passing yards. His over-under for rushing yards is 500. Any of these wetting your whistle at all, Jimmy? Oh, for context, he threw for 40. He threw for more yards than what his over-under is last year with 1 fewer game.
Yeah, no, there's every one of these you hammer so far.
By the way, I looked this one up. Buffalo, for a team that scores the most points, is plus 900.
I probably would not make that bet because I don't see them being that team.
And that's fair. I think the thing that really limits them in terms of that bet is their lack of a running game.
Yeah.
Sean McDermott, plus 1,800 for Coach of the Year. And get ready to hear that. There's just a ton of coaches that are plus 1,800.
Yeah, but I think I think that's a good bet. That's a bet to make.
Yeah, because we both think they're going to win at least 13, 14 games. And if you're already to that point, you can easily go 15-2, 16-1 if you catch a break or two. If they do that, he's going to wind up being Coach of the Year.
Yep.
Stephon Diggs' over-under for yards is 1,375.
Oh. That one I'd have to stare at that one a while.
He was pretty much there last year with 1 fewer game. That's why I really like this bet.
The only way I wouldn't like that, they've actually added some depth at wide receiver this year, so there might not be quite as many targets for Diggs. But
that's a good point.
I could see him hitting that number. It would probably be a stay away for me, but he could definitely get there. I mean, he's an excellent wide receiver, and he may be able to get there with fewer targets too. So, because Josh Allen loves just chucking balls up to him deep downfield.
Yeah, and he went for 1,500 yards last year and 8 touchdowns. His over-under sits at 8 again this year.
I like the 8 touchdowns. They use him. They get very creative with him in the red zone. I would definitely take the touchdowns bet.
Yeah, I like all of those. I think Buffalo's going to put a ton of points on the board. Them and Kansas City and the Browns are going to be a lot of fun to watch if you like offense.
Yeah.
All right, any last thoughts on the Bills?
Yeah, there's a couple other spots I want to touch with the Bills.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I know you said you're not real happy with the running backs. They remind me of, and anybody who's had David Montgomery
or any of the Bears running backs the last like 5 years can understand.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's anything there consistently. Like you might get a good game here, you might get a good game there, but over the course of a 17-game season, they're going to have at least 10 games where they get nothing from their running game.
Right. One thing this division so far, what I've looked at, there are teams in this division that have made, in my opinion, some sneaky good free agent acquisitions. And if he can stay healthy with the way Josh Allen plays quarterback, I love that Matt Breida is in Buffalo.
Interesting. He put up some big games for the 49ers, so...
He did, and health has been the concern. But with the way Allen likes to play quarterback, I could see Breida being... Like, I don't think he's not a between-the-tackles runner. You've got Singletary and Moss to give you the Leroy Horde 4 yards. But I can see Breida being that safety valve, being that late-breaking route and making big things happen. I think I like Matt Breida in that spot. Their offensive line is good. Their defensive line is really strong. But I think one spot when they get to the playoffs is going to be helpful. If they're healthy, their secondary, I mean, they have 3 like all-pro level guys with Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde. And I think in the AFC and the playoffs, being able to cover one-on-one multiple positions is going to be how you're going to have to stop a lot of the better teams in the AFC. And I think Buffalo may have the opportunity to do that. But I also think those teams also have pretty good defenses where you can probably turn Josh Allen over. I'm curious to see how this team goes, because I agree with you that Buffalo is looking like the media darling team. Josh Allen is, without having more playoff wins or necessarily a statistical edge over Baker or Lamar, for some reason we're saying Josh Allen is the best quarterback of that draft class.
Yeah, and he had one good year.
And I don't know if I buy that. Like,
yeah,
I just don't know if I buy that.
Well, but I think a lot of that is there's a Baker Mayfield backlash, and there's certain people that drive that bus and refuse to admit that they're wrong, and that's fine. But that's a lot of what's going on with Josh Allen, in my opinion.
But I think the thing to me that's going to be wild for this Bills team, like the way, like you talked about how you're going to get tired of hearing Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's going to be crazy, right? So their first 4 games, they've got the Steelers, the Dolphins, the Washington football team, and the Texans. Those could be 4 blowout wins.
Oh, yeah. And they're going to be like the Chiefs sometimes, where their offense rolls and they just hang a 50 burger on somebody and thanks you, that's a win.
And then after those 4 games, they have a primetime game with the Chiefs, which could be one of the best regular season games of the season.
Yeah, but that's going to be a big measure for them because the Chiefs have their number. Right, those games haven't been close.
I agree with that. But then where I think you're going to get sick of Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, the next 7 games for them, Titans, Dolphins, Jaguars, Jets, Colts, Saints, Patriots.
Yeah, there's a lot of wins in there.
I have them winning all 7 of those games.
Like, okay, I think that's fair. I don't want to talk about the Bills anymore. We're going to talk a ton about them during the regular season.
You're already sick of it, and they haven't won.
Yeah, they're going to win a ton of games this year. We're going to talk about them all year. They're going to look great. Yada yada. Okay. I'll just remind everybody that when you talk about the best quarterbacks of the 90s, Troy Aikman's name never gets mentioned, and that motherfucker won 3 Super Bowls. So that's how much being the most talked about quarterback matters in football. So
you got to come to the No Broken Legs podcast to get info like that.
I mean,
quarterback matters, but it ain't all that matters.
They spend all their time talking about Peyton Manning and how many Super Bowls did he win versus Brady. Brady's the GOAT. And he's been overshadowed most of his career in the media. So if they want to make Josh Allen wants to be the darling, if that's who the media wants, then so be it, because I feel better with Baker not being in that spotlight.
I agree.
Okay, let's move on to the New England Patriots before we get to Miami, because I think New England's super interesting. I
do too, bro.
They had a whole bunch of people opt out last year during COVID. They got very little from the quarterback position. Cam Newton started out all right, but then he got COVID, and it was just a mess. And maybe he's got COVID again, and he's got his whole issue with the vaccine. But does Mac Jones end up starting for this team? When, Jimmy?
I am pro Cam. I think Cam better get his ass vaccinated in camp, or Mac is going to steal his job. And I think Mac may be competent enough to be able to succeed in a Josh McDaniels role. And I'll tell you why as we talk more about that roster. But I believe right now Cam Newton is still a better quarterback. I also believe with the failure of last season, I mean, I can't imagine what it's been like for Belichick having Brady go win a Super Bowl and his team underperform because he had so many players opt out.
I'm guessing it sucked.
I can't. I mean, he's just got I doubt he has any tolerance for this nonsense. And I think if Cam doesn't get himself right and in camp, Cam Newton is not going to be the starter for this team.
Do you think it matters for the lines I'm about to read off if Mac Jones or Cam Newton is starting? I'll take that as a no. Like, if you have to think about it that long, that's a no. So let's just get into the lines. I don't think either of us thinks they're winning the Super Bowl, but they're plus 3,300. To go to the Super Bowl, win the AFC, they're plus 1,600. They are plus 350 to win the AFC East. I don't think they're hitting any of those bets. Do you, Jimmy?
Yeah, I can't make any of those bets. I actually projecting out. I have them in the 12 to 14 win range, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit.
Wow, their over/under sits at 9, so you're definitely taking the over there.
I'm taking the over, but they're still not going to be able to win the division because they're not going to have more wins than Buffalo.
So give me the case for why you think New England's going to be so much better.
Well, I got some stuff here, right? So when I really started looking at the Patriots, first and foremost, Belichick and McDaniels have to coach better than they did last year, plain and simple. But the offense looked okay enough when Cam was healthy at the start of the year. I do love they've actually added Troy Brown as a wide receiver special teams coach, and I love that. I think there's a lot of knowledge there for how Patriots wide receivers are supposed to play. And then they've added Gerard Mayo as a linebacker coach. Same situation. He knows how they want the linebackers to play. So I don't like the running back position. I just don't think they're good there with Damian Harris and James White. But situationally, James White will make things happen. So wide receiver, they just went and got every dude they could get, right? You went out and you got guys like Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. These are not great wide receivers, but with a bunch of them, Josh McDaniels should be able to get them open. The moves they made that I like, if they're both healthy, they went out and they signed Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. And I think that was really good financial moves if they're healthy. Josh McDaniels knows how to call plays when he's got two good tight ends. But for me, it's just getting these guys back on the defensive side of the ball that didn't play last year. The defense is going to look totally different.
So on that point, Jimmy, where do you think the New England Patriots ranked last year in points allowed?
Points allowed, I'm going to say somewhere in the 15 to 20 range.
The New England Patriots. Yeah, they were 7th. They scored 326 points. They gave up 353.
Wow.
And they're getting all those guys back on defense. So I think their defense is going to be really good. I think they're going to struggle offensively, but I still think they're going to win 10 games. I think they go 10-7.
Yeah, I like that. So, like I said, I mean, their defensive line, their D-line is weak, but linebacker and secondary, they're really good. But, if you run through their schedule, I still have them going 5-1 in the division. I think they win both games against the Jets, both games against the Dolphins, and I do think they'll split with the Bills.
I agree.
Then you look at other games on the schedule. I have them winning against the Texans, the Cowboys, the Panthers, the Falcons, and so I have them beating the whole AFC South.
Yeah, and that's what really helps this division. I have 3 of the 4 teams as over just because they're playing the AFC South.
Yeah, and then I have them beating the Cowboys, the Panthers, and the Falcons. I have them losing to the Bucs and the Browns to go along with the loss to the Bills. and then I have not sure games with the Saints and the Chargers. I could see those games going either way. So I just think the division is still just weak enough that with their defense, I think like they could beat the Dolphins twice, 17-10.
Yeah.
Like I see them winning games like that, but I've said it and I'm going to keep saying it. I'm way down on the AFC South. Like I don't think the AFC South is very good. I don't believe
we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, I don't think adding a great wide receiver does not solve the fact that the Tennessee Titans can't stop anybody from scoring.
Well, don't be putting the cart ahead of the horse here. We'll get there.
Fair enough, but I'm so down on the South that it actually made it kind of hard for me projecting this division a little bit because I'm like, the Patriots don't have a great offense, but those are a ton of games they can win.
Yeah, and actually, for me, it made it really easy because I was on the fence with everybody in this division except for Buffalo on their over-under.
Right.
And the AFC South played a role in that.
Yeah, because I think, much like we talked about with the Baltimore Ravens, the New England Patriots don't lose a lot of games to bad teams. Maybe once a year something wacky happens, but they don't get beat by a lot of bad teams. They don't beat themselves, and they don't get beat by bad teams. And they have a lot of bad teams on their schedule.
All right. Let's move on to a team that I think we probably disagree on somewhat, the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, goodness.
They are plus 3,300 to win the Super Bowl, just like New England. They are plus 1,600 to win the AFC and plus 350 to win the AFC East, just like New England. Their over-under sits at 9.5, though. Jimmy, do the Miami Dolphins win more than 9.5 games?
So, for me personally, I'm absolutely hammering that under. I don't think they can get to 10 wins.
Interesting. I think they do get to 10 wins, but I don't think they're very good.
So you think they will be able to get a lot of wins in those games against the AFC South?
Well, I just think they are a middle of the pack NFL team.
I would agree with that.
They have I like their coach. I like Brian Flores. I think he's a really good coach. Guys love playing for him. I think that defense is going to be good. I think they have some pieces on offense. I don't think Tua's any good. And I think they can find a way to win 10 games like Nagy would do with Mitchie Trubisky. But to me, they're a team. I think they're a middle of the pack team. I think they're going to win 10 games, and people are going to say, "Ooh, watch out for Miami in the playoffs," and then they're going to lose by 20.
Yeah, I can see. I had a hard time. The Dolphins and the Jets, I really had a hard time projecting out games that I thought they could win. Like it was.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the Jets it wasn't difficult to do much with the Jets, but yes, finding wins on their schedule is a difficult task.
Yeah, like that, and the Tua thing, the one thing I will say about Tua is, so this team is, if they're all healthy and playing, and that's obviously, it's a caveat, it is a big deal. If they're healthy wide receiver, the Dolphins have one of the strongest wide receiver cores in the NFL, plain and simple.
Yeah, they've got some players there.
Now we both not sure. You are more sure than I am that Tua might not be the guy, but I think the spot where I'm more sure of than you are, if Tua slips up, I don't think Brian Flores. I think coming from the Bill Belichick tree, I think their head coach is more tied to winning football games than he is a player, and
Agreed.
I believe Jacoby Brissett is a good quarterback if he's healthy.
Yeah, and I think he's the type of quarterback that could win 10 games with this. I don't think he's necessarily as good as Tua, but I think he'd be more consistent.
I'll be honest, if I consider Jacoby the starter, I could probably project them out at 10 wins. Like I have them at 7 right now because I just see some games against defenses where Tua's going to make passes he shouldn't, and there's going to be mistakes made. But I like Jacoby Brissett. Watching them this weekend.
But let's be honest, Brissett's not going to play.
No,
that's not what's going to happen. And if that's what ends up happening, it's either because Tua got hurt or because they're 2-5. I mean, he's not going to come
fair.
in. Tua is going to have a long leash. Brissett's not going to come in until the season's already over.
That's fair enough. But I do like a little. Their offensive line's going to have to perform. They stole two good linebackers from the Houston Texans in Benedict McKinney and Brennan Scarlett, and they got a couple outstanding guys in their secondary in Howard and McCourty. But I just think Buffalo and New England are just still by far better than these other two teams in the division. I think Miami will be in a lot of games. I imagine when we pick games based on spread week to week, I'm probably going to take Miami a lot because I think they're going to be in football games. I just don't think they're going to be able to get a lot of W's.
Well, speaking of teams that aren't going to get a lot of W's, the New York Jets, plus 15,000 to win the Super Bowl, 60. I know, it's absurd. I feel like we should have
that's a big number.
I feel like we should have Rick James from that interview on the Chappelle Show. That is absurd. Plus 6,600 to win the AFC, plus 2,500 to win the AFC East. If you bet any of those, just write a check to the show. We'll do something better with it than the casino will.
I promise we'll put it to good use. Just make it out to us. We'll take care of you.
The over-under for the Jets is at 6.5. They have a rookie quarterback, Zach Wilson, that's going to be playing. Jimmy, do the Jets win more than 6.5 games?
No, but I think that's pretty spot on. I have them in the 4 to 6 range. I have them with wins, and one of these I've actually changed since we did the AFC North. I have them beating the Falcons, beating the Jaguars, and because of the offensive line play that the Bengals have put out there so far, I now have them beating the Bengals. And then they may be able to beat the Texans. Maybe you get a split with the Dolphins. Maybe you get a trap with the Eagles and the Saints. Maybe. But I have them in the 4 to 6 range, but I can also foresee a 2-win season for them.
Yeah, I got them at 4-13. And really the question on this team in this season is going to be, what does Zach Wilson look like? So can
we talk about the Zach Wilson situation just for a minute?
I don't even know what to make of the Jets in general because the coach, like, everything's an open competition, and then the coach is changing. He's being secretive, and there's like all this stuff that reminds me of what the Browns did when they were really, really bad.
Right, but I don't know if you know this, but I think, like, when I look at the guys that are in their quarterback room, I think I'm only like 2 steps away from a phone call. Like, I'm amazed that they did not sign any kind of veteran presence for their quarterback room. Zach Wilson he better be good.
Yeah, he's but here's the problem. He's not, because we've seen this before. You took a young quarterback. He's not ready to start. I like the left side of that offensive line. There's still questions pretty much across the board on the roster. And do they have the right coach? I don't know. He's a defensive guy, so do they have the right offensive coordinator for Zach Wilson? What are they going to do with him? And his over under is 3,750.5 yards and 21.5 touchdowns. The bet that I like for him is plus 900 for most interceptions.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I couldn't dare touch those numbers, but I like the most interceptions bet. You know,
they're a mess. The Jets are a mess.
They are. I am going to say a couple good things about the Jets, but the Zach Wilson thing. So when we look at these quarterbacks that got drafted, like Zach Wilson, when you've watched him play, he has looked probably more along than I felt Sam Darnold looked in preseason games.
Like more farther away?
No, I actually think he's farther along. Like, I see him.
Oh, okay. You mean he's come in at a higher level than Sam Darnold started?
I think he just seems a little bit more ready.
Well, that's a good thing because Sam Darnold didn't look ready for the NFL.
Right. No, I agree, but I feel like with him, if you took 2 of those backup players off of every defense, and inserted 2 starters, I would not feel the same way about Zach Wilson. Like, Justin Fields has looked like a bona fide starter in the NFL. Trey Lance has looked like a bona fide starter in the Canadian Football League. But in preseason, Zach Wilson has looked okay. But I just can't believe that this is what the Jets have done. Like, we're going to hire a defensive-minded head coach, and we're going to go get this quarterback, and we're going to give him no support. Like, I'm looking through, like, I went through every team in the AFC East coaches tree, right? Their coaching staff, everything. The only name that popped for me at all was Miles Austin as their wide receiver coach. Like, Miles Austin can help the wide receivers, but it's not. They don't have a known quarterback coach. They don't have a known offensive coordinator. I feel like they're doing the same thing to this kid they did to Sam Darnold, and it's sad to me. Like, but I will say one thing from listening to the gentleman on the Athletic Football Podcast, Robert Mays and Nate Tice. Mekhi Becton, and I went and watched some of the film that they released because what they said. Mekhi Becton looks ready to take another step, and it appears because he's battling Quentin Williams, who's a great defensive lineman, every day in practice. So that's good. At least maybe Mekhi can keep Zach upright a little bit.
In my opinion, I think he's the best of the offensive linemen taken last year.
From that draft, and I have no problem with
that. Or
that.
I'm sorry, from 2 seasons ago. And I like what Wills has done for the Browns. I think he's been really solid. Yeah. I just think Becton's been better.
Yeah, I agree. And he said, like, Quentin Williams is teaching him how to be good just by being better than him. And, on the defensive side, but I look at the defense and, like, Quentin Williams is really good and C.J. Mosley is really good. And then there's a bunch of bad NFL football players on the defensive side of the ball.
They're still the Jets.
For the Jets, I apologize.
Yeah, they're still the Jets. That's who they are.
Yeah, but because in my mind shut off because we have a friend who would like to see the Jets be good at NFL football, and I just don't think it's happening anytime soon. The one thing I do like offensively, for the sense of winning football games, I don't think it's going to help. For the sense of fantasy football, I will say almost every roster I'm going to have, I will have Corey Davis and or Jamison Crowder because I think they're going to get all the targets.
Yeah, especially in PPR leagues.
Yeah, I think they're just 2 guys that I'm going to want shares of because they're going to get balls thrown to them, open or not.
And have you noticed that there's the new trend in fantasy sports is the best ball leagues? I think both of them would be excellent additions. You can get them really late, and they're going to have some games this year where they catch 10 to 15 balls.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess, it doesn't really seem like in our adult lives, nothing has changed in the AFC East. It's just there's always been one really good team and one pretty good team. For a while, it was the Jets. For a second, it was the Bills. For a second, it was the Dolphins, and now it's back to the Bills are the really good team and the Patriots are the pretty good team, and the Jets and Dolphins are still really bad.
All right. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts on the AFC East?
No, I'm very, because it's something that kind of our generation of football fans have watched, I'm just very curious to see what the Patriots look like this year in year 2 without Tom Brady. Because you could very much settle a debate of was it Brady or was it Belichick if the Patriots are poor again this year, because I think they have enough pieces and they play in a poor division and they're playing a week out of schedule division that they should be really good. And if they're not, then I think there may be some changes made to the opinions of Bill Belichick. But the Buffalo Bills are, unfortunately, they're just going to be a team we're going to have to watch and deal with, and they're going to have some great games. But that Week 5 game with the Kansas City Chiefs, that may be one of the biggest regular season games in the AFC. I'll be very curious to see how it goes, because like we haven't done the AFC West yet, but we believe that the Browns might not be able to beat the Chiefs, but we believe it'll be a close game. We believe the same thing about the Bills game. What happens to the Chiefs if they lose both those games? Now you can't slip up anywhere else if you're still trying to get that number 1 seed.
Yeah, and with only one bye, that really makes it's just that competition for wins is really stiff.
Yeah, like I said, so I'm just it's just kind of weird to me. Like I kind of feel bad for Jets fans and Dolphins fans because I don't think they're close enough to be able to compete in their division yet. There's going to be a lot of ugly games between the Jets, the Dolphins, and all four of the teams in the AFC South. Those are going to be games I'm not going to watch, not even the fast track replays.
Ouch. Well, Jimmy, that is a stunning indictment and a good note to end on. Thank you for joining me tonight.
No problem. I'd rather be, brother.
All right, and thank you for listening. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore, and we are No Broken Legs.